Hi
15
Ollie,
minutes.
hi everyone.
Hi, Marcos. Good to see you again.
Likewise. So we're just doing one of our very short Q&A videos again. So we don't have specifically a question from a student or an audience this week, but I think you said, Ollie, you had a question or something that often comes up
Yes,
from
it's often
students.
comes up. It's a question that I remember asking myself, and I had to look it up. But back in the day, I didn't have wonderful teachers like Marcos then. Um, but it does come up quite a lot. People do ask it. And it's, when we're doing medical astrology, particularly when we're asking questions based on the horary method of the exact time and place of when the consultation starts or when the illness starts. Why do we use, and I do use this, I know Marcos uses that, and I know most medical astrologers that I know in the UK certainly use it, the Regiomontanus house system, rather than, for instance, the Placidus house system, which most people who do natal astrology use. And there's a number of answers to this. I mean, funnily enough, one of the main ones is, of course, that William Lilly, who literally wrote the book on horary astrology, uses the Regiomontanus system. He never really gives an answer why. It's just what he gives it, what he uses. And I think there's a lot of traditional, like, well, that's what it was good enough for Lilly. It's good enough for me.
Uh,
Um, but And I'm sure Marcus will be going into more detail. There's also things to do with how the houses, now both Placidus and Regiomontanus base base the houses on the ascendant and the midheaven. So they're divided up by on the four stakes, as it were, or, of the chart, which not all house systems are. So the first house is always on the ascendant, the first house. The fourth house is always on the descendant, on the ilium
what
remind
you said, the fourth house is always on the IC, right?
the IC, thank you. And the seventh house is always on the descendant, and the 10th house is always starts with the midheaven. And that's not the same with all house systems. For instance, the whole sign system, which is becoming very popular now, does not use that. And so, the ascendant might not be at the beginning of the first house, usually isn't it? And vice versa all the other ones. And there's various other systems, and there's so many systems I'm not familiar with more, but in that we're looking here, like, why do people use Placidus for natal charts and why do people use Regiomontanus for horary charts? And I think one of the reasons, and Marcus might correct me here, is how they divide up the sky between them. That basically, and you'll notice this, that the houses, unless you're very near the equator and the equinoxes, etc., are not even. They tend to be different sizes. Like you might have a wildly huge first house and then a tiny sort of second or third house, or vice versa, etc. And that's because the sky is divided up, in the case of Placidus, for instance, by time, what would be going on in those particular hours that are passing. I'm not even going to attempt to say how he does it because I should probably get it wrong. As it's, but Marcos can tell you that probably. Um, and Regiomontanus, as I understand it, is more divided up by space. Would you say that was true?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And so, and as natal charts are all about it's all about the timings of when you were born and what was exactly, and the horary charts are more about the space of what's going on in that space. I feel I put that very badly, but Marcus, go into some more details on that.
Okay, no, I like that. I like that, Ollie. So the way I think about it is exactly as you said. The first is that argument from authority or argument from history. If it's good enough for William Bloody Lilly, it's good enough for us. I mean, there's that. That's true. But the second one is a philosophical point that I like to make, which is exactly what you were saying. Placidus is a division of time. It's a division of the arc, like, say, the sun from the ascendant when it rises to the midheaven. That takes a certain amount of time. So you divide that time equally into whatever, how long it takes from the sun between when it rises and when it hits the middle of the sky. You divide that amount of time into three, and that forms the 12th, 11th, and 10th houses. So that's Placidus. By contrast, Regiomontanus is a division of the equator. So you're dividing this sort of imaginary girdle around the middle of the Earth, the midway point between the two poles of the Earth, and it's on its own axis, and projecting that into the sky. And that's usually going to be at an angle to the ecliptic, unless you're on one of the tropics at the right time of year, Tropic of Cancer or Tropic of Capricorn. Anyway, point is, with Placidus being a division of time, I think that is more appropriate for when you're looking at charts, looking at time. So I personally use Placidus a lot of the time for birth charts, because I'm sort of often, there's a technique that Lilly uses, and he uses it in relation to horary. There's a couple of modern astrologers who use a very similar technique called the Hubers, who invented this house counting system, but they were reinventing the wheel. I don't think they were aware that William Lilly had done this 500 years before them. But William Lilly's technique was to count clockwise from the ascendant. So 12th house is the first 5 years of life, 11th house is the next 5 years of life, the 10th house is the next 5 years of life. And the reason he counted it that way is because that's the way that the sun rises. So it's against the order of the houses, but he would sort of say, so that, and I found this system really useful in birth charts as a sort of quick and dirty, what's going to be happening to you at this time of life. Like if you've got a nice Jupiter in your 9th house, some point in your later teenage years, you'll probably have a good time. That'll be a good time. Conversely, if you have a really cruddy Saturn on your descendant, when you hit the age of 30, it's probably going to be a bit grim. It's a really good. So, and for that, I prefer Placidus because it's literally a division of time. So for most birth charts, I will use Placidus because philosophically that seems to make sense. For medical astrology and for horary astrology, which is, I would say, perhaps more, we both do birth charts, but we're more used to working with that stuff, I prefer Regiomontanus because symbolically it seems to make sense. It's a division of space. You're dividing up the girdle around the middle of the Earth. You're literally cutting the Earth into 12 equal physical segments, then projecting them into space, and then dividing the ecliptic, which is the plane of the Earth's orbit around the sun, into those segments. So what you're literally doing is you're bringing the sky down to Earth. So if you're doing medical astrology, which is all about diagnostics, what body part are you looking at? Or horary, which is like, where is my handbag? You're dealing with physical stuff, either organs or material things or whatever. So I think Regiomontanus philosophically, to me, in terms of what the symbolism is, makes more sense. So I don't think those are two arguments that you'll find being made in the tradition. Those are just two arguments that I'd say we have sort of collated or come to. So positions that we've come to just looking at the symbolism. But the traditional reason is literally just an argument from history or from authority, which is that most of the Renaissance authorities that we base a lot of our astrological techniques on, like Lilly and Culpeper, did prefer to use Regiomontanus because it was the house system that was most common and sort of popular at that time. But so that's two reasons why I lean more towards Regio and sometimes Placidus. Yeah.
Try them both and see what you think is what I do as well.
Exactly. I mean, look, there are no astrology. I see what, I don't know if you agree with this, Ollie. I suspect that you do, but astrology is a divinatory system. So while I don't think it's a good idea to go reinventing the wheel, I think it's a good idea to follow precedent in that these things have been thought about very carefully over a long period of time. I do think there's room for flexibility and innovation and not being rigid, and experimentation and unique ways of practicing, because it's divination, it's not science. We're not looking at a rigid thing here, but we are looking at concepts and precepts that have been developed over a long period of time.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
And it's a set of rules that ultimately you, as the astrologer, are going to have to interpret the results of. And so get some results that you've got, your intuition can really get its teeth into, and you're symbolically happy with it. Really helps.
Amazing. Yes. Love it.
All right.
I love it.
Okay.
All right. We hope that answers that question, what we have just asked, because it is a question that comes up quite a lot. So anyway, if you've enjoyed this, please like it, share it, do all the things, and hopefully we'll see you in the next one. Oh, and check out our course, by the way. We've got a link below to our school. Right. Bye. Bye, Ollie. Thanks.
Bye, Marcos.